Welcome back to the show. In this episode of Decoded, I am speaking to Andrzej Winnicki. Andrew is the CTO of Omnevue, a fast-growth SaaS startup. If you're interested in building businesses or building cool tech products, then I'd highly recommend giving this episode a listen. So enjoy our podcast and don't forget to click subscribe. All right, Andrew, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. So you're the CTO of Omnevue. Now, lots of people listening to this podcast, watching right now, they're working in tech and they would love to progress one day into more of like a leadership type position. So I guess what advice would you give to people to begin with that are maybe working as a developer or tester or some other type of technical role, and one day they'd love to be a manager, a lead, a CTO? What do you wish you knew when you were like making that transition? What advice can you give to people that are kind of potentially going in through that situation?
That's a tricky question. Tricky because it really depends on people and what they're looking for. And I feel that these days, in many cases, people actually think that the only journey for them as an engineer is the leadership role, which I think used to be the case maybe 20 years ago, where people had no really choice. Like, that's how it is. You become a manager. That's your probably childhood dream to, tell people what to do. Which, first of all, that's not what the real leadership role is about. Yes. But second of all, that's not the only path now, these days. I've been in roles where I had software engineering being paid more than me because they were amazing individual contributors, and I cared more about them being as people joining the company rather than them just leading. And it's not always the case. But what they would, I haven't thought about it actually. I think in my case is I got a little bit lucky in a way because whenever I went through, I gradually took over things and there was always space for me. Okay. I would always say learn and be open to try things. And I think the most important place to be a leader, it's always this kind of balance of people think that if you want to be a leader, you need to be made one and then you can prove yourself. But I believe you can be a leader without the formal position. So you can actually lead a team. You can lead even one person, really lead yourself properly. Yeah. With that, if you want to lead, just lead. And when you lead, this should be noticed at some point. Whether it's going to be noticed by the company somebody's in at the moment, or it's going to be noticed later, that's a totally different story. Sure. But the starting point is become a leader. Do things. Be progressive in a way of finding solutions. Get into conversations that nobody else wants to get into. Be there, be involved, be interested outside of the tech team. That's really, I think that's really something that lots of people are missing. Like, I only take care about the tech. I don't care about the product. I don't care about QA, design, all those things. And that's partially true, but the biggest chunk in it is they usually don't care about the business. We work in companies. Actually, we work for companies, and our goal is to support business. We are not in this tech bubble of we are the most amazing people and everybody is serving us and we are the gurus in the company because we're building tech, we're building actually product, but because we're building business, our goals has to be aligned with business. And when we start aligning our technology goals with business, this is where we can start leading. And when we start leading, we can get involved and open to opportunities. Yeah. This will lead slowly to gaining the leadership power, which then potentially leads to role. The funny thing is, lots of people may find out that it's not what they want to do. And I've seen it many times when somebody said, oh, I want to be a manager, I want to be promoted. It's like, do you really? Let's have a chat about what does it mean? What does it mean to actually not code, being amazing software engineer, leading an agile team, however the structure in the company is, and what actually managing humans means. And very often, if somebody has like very open and honest discussion about this, very often they found out that it's not entirely what they want to do. They feel they can do all the things they've done, plus they can rule other people in a way. But then when they found out that this basic career change, and the deeper they go, the less they do things they love, they've learned that brought them to this point, very often they just end up in a situation like, I don't want to be. And I think challenge is once they go there, they feel they cannot go back because I've been a manager, head of engineering, because sometimes those positions, names of the positions are stupid in a way that they're overblown to what they actually serve. And people have this thing that I cannot be just backend engineer because it's just I'm demoting myself. But that's really where they enjoy. And they stuck in this career they don't actually want ever, and they never want it, and they actually want to continue, but they feel they cannot make a step back to just enjoy what they do and maybe just coding. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of what flows to my head, trying to guide where to get it at least.
I love what you said around do the job that you want before you are given that responsibility, like officially, because it's so true. If you want to be a leader and perhaps leadership is lacking in your team, or you think you can be doing a better job, if you stand up and if you start, without having permission, if you just start bringing new initiatives to the table and challenging people and coming up with pros and cons for different concepts, that's what a leader does, and you don't need somebody to give you permission to do a lot of those things. And if you start doing them well, when somebody needs a leader for that team, you're the obvious person because you're already doing the job. And I think most people, they really want to wait until they have official permission before, and then when it comes to actually doing that job, they'll pick somebody else because somebody else didn't play by the rules and they made up their, and there are no rules, there's just opinions. I mean, every rule is somebody else's opinion written down basically, so you need to come up with better ones, and it's so true. I guess prior to the CTO world, you've been in senior positions in software engineering for a couple of years. So if we think less about management and think right back about the beginning of your career, I guess when you were starting out as a developer or wherever you entered the tech world, for people that are perhaps younger listening to this, I think like 25% of the people that listen to the podcast are either students or they're like junior developers, and they're trying to break into tech, they're trying to get that career started. What advice would you give to those people? What do you wish that you knew when you were just starting out your journey?
Again, I don't think my direct experience translates. Well, I think I was lucky again enough that I got a lot of things right fairly early. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you an example. And this is coming, I'm going through the hiring process. I've went through hundreds and hundreds of interviews, interviewing engineers on every possible level and beyond that. I'm always struggling with very specific types. It doesn't matter what company, there's always specific things I'm struggling to bring. For me, the most important thing is bringing the right personality. And that doesn't mean that somebody has to be exactly like me. I don't think I would survive with a team when everybody's similar to me. But I don't want the team to be absolutely dramatically different. There is some similarities, and the ways of working, the way treating people, the way of communicating, those things are important. And those are things important to develop. If people don't have those things, they won't be able to get the right job. Now, the biggest thing I'm struggling, honestly, with fresh people joining the companies is knowing actually what they're doing. And I'm not saying that they need to have 10 years of experience, but they actually understand what they're doing. And we're talking about engineers, code. I would rather bring a person who knows JavaScript. Let's say we're hiring for the front-end engineer. Person who knows JavaScript, CSS, of course HTML to some degree, although these days it seems to be a little bit less important, but knows the solid base of the language. Rather than somebody says, oh, I've been working 2 years on React, and they can't code simple thing in JavaScript without the React context. It's like, oh, I always done it in React this way. It's like, yeah, but it's not useful because we use Vue. It's like, I don't mind I would rather have somebody who knows the solid, because I know they'll quickly catch up with any library. Good software engineer knows the language, and they will catch up with any library very quickly, and there is no concern about that. When somebody is stuck in one word and they say React is the best, I'm picking React because I'm not a big fan of React personally, but React is the best, like, I don't care. As long as you can switch to Vue, or you can actually code sometimes vanilla JavaScript, because that's what we were going to need, that's fine. But if you don't have basis, you won't be able to do it because you need this context. This problem was valid 15 years ago. I'm thinking, was it 15 years ago? It was around 15 years ago, when a lot of software engineers, backend usually called developers, basically, they were all jQuery based. It's like they couldn't do anything without jQuery. Now, these days, there's a lot of people that come in and they cannot do anything without the React. I think the problem is going to only deepen now, and it's because of the AI. Because everybody's using Copilot. I'm using Copilot myself because it speeds up my work doing the boring stuff. But every time something happens, I know exactly what Copilot is suggesting me, and I know is it valid, if it's the best way of doing, and just picks up some of the things I would just normally have to find in the code and just figure out, like saves me time basically. I think it will create a wave of people, of engineers who don't actually understand the code. They kind of only can review it. It's like, oh, it seems to be working. They can fix it and leave it behind. Those engineers will be very quickly filtered out of the system. And I think this is what the major concern now is in the software engineering world, that everybody's going to be replaced by AI. Only those people who don't actually understand the underlying language will be replaced by AI, because it's actually, that's the purpose of it. It won't replace true talent, people who genuinely can build. So my always advice will be, learn the actual language. And if somebody, when you go into an interview and somebody asks you, what is a cookie and how does it work? Your only answer is not, oh, this is little pop-up that pops on the website because European Union requires it. I heard this answer so many times. And I know as soon as I hear an answer like that, I know this person doesn't really know software engineering. For me, honestly, that's for me qualifying question. Usually somebody doesn't know answer to something like that. They usually don't know answers to many, many other things. And I haven't even asked hard questions.
Yeah.
Underlying language, this is the base. Just learn actually coding, leave libraries outside. It doesn't help that boot camps and all those kind of things are focused only on libraries, because they create engineers or developers who are about to work in the corporate environment, where they have massive push on actually libraries, using frameworks and libraries, particular ones, and they end up in a situation where they never can get out of it, and they stuck. I call this framework developers. It's like they stuck within their little bubble, and they have a very hard time to actually get out of it ever. Yeah. And that when I think people breaks and just become those very stuck in positions. Sometimes in some of the places might be overpaid, and they have to change job for some reason. Like recently there was so many people being dropped off from companies, and they struggle to find any job because they simply are not prepared. They were lucky to be in this position. Now they're not prepared to actually be in the new position. They have to downgrade salaries, expectations, and that's very, very painful. I've been there. I experienced this myself. It's a painful experience just to feel like, oh, I'm overshooting and I should do something about it.
This is a quick message to tell you about Alpha. I'm so excited to announce that we have created this incredible new tool which works as your personal AI recruiter. If you are hiring software engineers in the UK, then you need to check this out. Just type in your hiring requirements and click search. It's really that simple. From here, Alpha will identify all the potential candidates on the market. It will then contact the most suitable options for you, and then you will receive the highest quality CVs who are already interested in working for your company. It's 10 times faster than a LinkedIn job advert, and it's 90% lower cost than a traditional recruitment agency. Get your free trial now at welovealpha.com or click the link in the description. Yeah, I completely agree that learning the foundations and learning to walk before you run is definitely the way to do it. Otherwise, it just complicates and creates problems later on down the line. And so many people just, especially new people, and you're right, coming from academies where they've got 13 weeks to learn how to code, basically, it's impossible to learn a lot of those foundational skills in that kind of timeline, but it's a lot more important to be able to understand the basics of JavaScript rather than, you can do a little bit of Angular, a little bit of React, or whatever. And I agree, when people obsess over a particular framework or some new technology, it's great, but in 18 months there's even a newer version of it. So like, why are you trying to focus on becoming a React guru when in reality you should be focused on becoming a front-end guru and understanding the holistic approach to it? Okay, moving away from tech a little bit, you did a Medium blog post last year on the 4-day work week, and it's quite a hot topic. Some people absolutely love it, some people absolutely hate it. I don't really know what my opinion is. I guess I definitely work 6-7 days a week, so I don't subscribe to it personally, but if people in my team wanted to do it, and as long as they were getting the same level of output, I would be keen for them to do it. But what are your thoughts on the concept?
It's great. It's not for everybody. Yeah. That's really important thing, because it's one of those things when you tell a random person, I at least found out that most of the people say like, that's amazing, we should totally do it across everywhere. It's the same way like with remote working.
Sure.
Some people will just love it and say, office can be demolished, we don't care about the offices. Some people say, no, we need to be in the office. Now there's a lot of polarization, like it's in or out. And I think with the 4 days weeks, you get the same. It's like we work 7 days or you just work 4 days. There is no this reasonable balance or the balance is people actually don't care. They just go with whatever is happening. But my experience so far is interesting and good. I've been in a way working 4 days a week for a very, very long time. Although it wasn't official, for me, Fridays were always about something else throughout it. So I had this disconnection that 4 days were proper hardcore work and Fridays were whether it was dedicated to education, whether it was dedicated to do something different, explore new ideas, work closer with the team, but not actually do coding. So I've been doing this for a very long time before even Omnevue. But in Omnevue, so now around 3 years, I think, we've been doing 4 days a week. So what we do, a person who joins to our team, first probation period is 3 months. They work 5 days a week with idea that they dedicate Friday for whatever they want. And by whatever they want, it means learn. If there's anything around this technology with what we do, you want to learn. If you need any help with anything, I'm happy to help you. Let's use this Friday for yourself to actually explore and learn new things and catch up with anything you want. The main work happens in 4 days a week. I would say that with the team we have, this is the most, even if we work 4 days a week, we are more efficient than many, many other teams I ever worked in the past, working full 5 days. And it's because there are 4 days of very focused, efficient work and not 5 days of fluff and too many meetings, because that's very often what happens. So my experience in general is really good. I always wonder if I would implement this again in the future. I have mixed feelings for different reasons. From one side, yes. From my personal kind of perspective, yes. But maybe I would play with it a little bit towards what I mentioned earlier, like 4 days is actually work on the product or those things. Dedicate Friday for the team to learn, to explore, to actually use this 20% of the time of the week to educate. Sure. In any ways, whether we do, hacking competitions, whether we learn, whether we explore new things, whether it's a trainings, whatever that is, just dedicated to learn and explore new things. That doesn't have to be exactly related to the work or task in front of you. So there's a kind of trying to find the right balance, but for us, so far it works amazingly. And we work 4 days a week. We don't work more. It's not like we work now 20 hours per day, Monday to Thursday. We still try to work from 9 to 5-ish, but we are flexible. So for example, I start work roughly at 7 a.m. and I will finish at 4 p.m. So I slightly shift the balance. We keep the flexibility. We had actually one guy a while ago who really did not like work throughout the day, which sounds weird. So he was working at the lunchtime and then he was starting working from like 5, 6 p.m. until midnight because that's what he enjoyed. Sure. It's like as long as you're in the core hours, there's no problem to communicate with you, and that works for you better. It's like, it's fine. We can kind of incorporate this. So I think it's more about the flexibility and trusting the team. I know you can only do it with the right team, and that's what I'm saying. It's not for everybody, because if you just hire a lot of people, you have too many people in the team, first of all, and those people are not the high achievers type, it may start actually having the effect everybody's afraid of, that people actually don't work or don't care. It's like they do less and so on. So It's all about the company, the culture in the company, and then only you can apply the 4 days a week. That's my experience and my feeling about this.
Yeah, that's definitely a much more sensible view than just saying, hey, everybody working here now works 20% less or something. Doing Fridays for education is great, because people often, they're so in the thick of it, working every single day, and they're trying to hit down a tree with a blunt axe. But if they just take a day to sharpen the axe and make it better, when they come back swinging on Monday, they'll be 10 times more productive. So, if you're not, every company says, hey, look, we're big on making sure our team have time and budget for learning and development, but nothing actually gets like scheduled in the calendar. It's just, hey, we'd love for you to learn more, but they don't actually really support that. But having dedicated time scheduled out for it is a much more effective way of making sure it actually gets done, if that makes sense.
I think you will know that you won't have much time to learn on your own when company in their job specifications say we are product obsessed. My experience is whenever a company says they're product obsessed is not really positive word, and there's a reason behind it. That means usually they have massive tech debt, which is, I would argue again, it's a product debt, not tech debt, but they have massive issues in terms of delivering quality, and it's all about delivering another shiny feature, and engineers usually are miserable in this state when all they have to do is deliver another thing, and they have there's no consideration for them to actually build it properly. And it's a balance. Sometimes something needs to be fast and dirty and just do the job. But engineers are the proud species who actually want to be proud of what they do. If they don't do, that's where you start losing engineers. And it's the best type of who stay there for a very long time. They survive a lot of crap, basically. They didn't have to. Yeah. And they end up leaving, and they take with them very often a lot of people behind. Yeah. So it's just finding this right balance. But yeah, it's having this opportunity to learn in whatever. So sometimes companies dedicate like a sprint for it, however they work in terms of the methodologies and so on. But they actually find those things to learn, to explore, to fix things that are annoying. That's probably the easiest way to start if somebody doesn't feel comfortable with giving time just for learning, because then other teams, non-technology, make complaints like why they're learning when they should deliver another product that will deliver sales, because that's my bonus. That could be an argument. But find dedicated time to fix annoying bits. All the time crashing pipelines, faulty or messy tests. Those are like the most common things that happen everywhere. Very often it's like, oh, we'll just deal with it later, and the later never comes. With this, people actually can say, you know what? Let's fix the things that are annoying, the part of the processes, the part of the annoying bits of technology, the things that are just flaky all the time. Let's just do this. It's part of the learning, because that will help to discover new things, how to fix this better, differently, and move on. But also will remove this pain that comes through daily job of getting another release, which then I see another hundreds of tests fail, and I need to check all of them, only to find out they're just basically flaky, and that's normal. After a while, nobody really cares about tests because they always fail.
Sure. It reminds me of an approach that Google, I think, used to take. I don't know if they still do it, but engineers would have like 10% of their time basically to spend on like working on personal projects. Now, these were personal projects for Google, for the company, but it wasn't something that they were assigned to. And I think some of Google's greatest products and creations came out of giving their team that flexibility and that freedom. So, it's not wasted time if you view it from that lens. It can lead to even greater results than what people were scheduled and arranged to do, basically, which is quite interesting. I guess earlier in your career, prior to doing the CTO role and some head of engineering roles, you spent 6 years with NVIDIA, okay, which is obviously the hot company at the moment. What are your thoughts on the future of AI? It seems to be 50% of people believe it's going to change the world and make it a utopia. Half of the people think it's going to end the world, and the complete opposite. What's your opinion on, I guess, the future of artificial intelligence?
I think it all depends how we're going to use it. It's like nuclear power. It was used in two different ways. And actually the initial design of it was to kill people. And only later they discovered that actually could create power and actually be useful. So it's the same with AI. I don't think, at least we on the surface know. I'm sure there's a army application for all those things, which is a lot of it's a driver for basically lots of innovation that we had in the world anyway. But I think it will remove a lot of jobs, only because those jobs have been taken. It's like the software engineering I've mentioned, the framework developers, for those people who are not actually understanding the language, they will be just obsolete in this world, because AI will basically speed up things, and they won't be needed to do those things. The people who will stay in the engineering world will be those people who are genuinely creative, the people who can actually do things beyond what AI can do. AI is a learning based on what happened already. So it can replicate in slightly different ways, but can replicate what happened of what humanity already done, whatever is where the training comes from. But it's us, with our knowledge, we can actually take it beyond And this is where probably the biggest chunk of help from AI will come, is improving what we have, but it will make some of the roles, some people, some specific type of people kind of obsolete, which of course it's a displacement, which will create a little bit of a chaos. I don't think AI will destroy the world. I just don't see it. Maybe because the governments are so keen to put so many regulations and bans on absolutely everything. The best example is petrol cars. We can argue for this. I know it's not a topic, but we can argue for ages about whether it's a good idea or not. But that's unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, tendency of, if something goes a little bit out of control, the European Union will put some bunch of regulations that will block it. Of course, probably not all countries or regions will do it. I think in the end it's going to be very, very helpful to us in all the areas. I found it myself. There was a hype on ChatGPT and all those new tools because they're mind-blowing and do all those things. And everybody got into it being scared of those things. Now they become fairly normal. I would say most of the people actually appreciate the help. I personally, for example, actually tend to stay away from them. I noticed, for example, you mentioned the articles. When I write articles, I did one article with help of ChatGPT. I wrote it, went through ChatGPT, get it help. I read it, it's like, this is such a crap, and I just did it. I would rather write it my way with mistakes, with minor grammar mistakes. Sometimes I know my sentences could be a little bit better formed, but it's actually genuinely me, not ChatGPT putting words. I just don't feel, it's like, they're just adding fluff to something that could be just simple sentence. Like, I don't want to review it every time and just try to make it acceptable. And by the way, I wrote one of those posts and I left it on Medium, and it's one of the least read posts, which kind of feels like proves the point.
Yeah.
So it's a good tool to help. I don't think it's a word distracting tool. It will create some displacement, like everything in the past that created, cars displace horses. Kind of sounds silly, but this kind of the evolution is like we need to get used to it and absorb it and see how it changes. Maybe it feels a little bit too fast, but I don't know what happened 100 years ago, because I'm sure they thought it's like, this is crazy, this is so fast, we are going to all die now.
Sure. I think people probably panic and think that for any new groundbreaking technology that comes around. And most of the time, so far, we're okay. We are having this conversation. AI feels like it could be slightly different. There's a number of ways it could go horribly wrong, but I am, like you, optimistic. And look, nuclear could have gone wrong as well. And touch wood, we're okay. So hopefully, it continues on that path. But it's interesting that you mentioned around the job displacement, and you kind of went to bad software developers as the first point of call, because it's not what I would have predicted. I thought self-driving cars replacing Uber drivers, I would have thought robots replacing construction workers, and all that's happening, but engineers and lawyers and accountants, and we're building AI which currently co-pilots but eventually replaces recruiters. Like a lot of these white collar jobs, I didn't expect AI machine learning to replace those roles, but it seems to be happening on scale as well.
Yeah.
Or getting to that point where it will soon be happening.
Yeah, the things like HR, I'm very against using AI for HR. And it's because it's straight away, it reminds me the Google SEO, 20 years ago, it's like everybody was as hot and let's put as many keywords as we can, and it became oversaturated with basically a lot of crap just to make it visible in Google search. I think with the AI tools for HR, it's very similar. And the big companies which now have, from what I've seen, hundreds of applicants, it's got very painful for them. But for example, whenever I was hiring, and that was when we were hiring, was about, I think, a year ago, I review every single CV just to make sure that if this person has something interesting for me, I will at least try to talk to them, because a lot of people are really bad at writing CVs, and that's not what I care about. I don't care, you can write the worst CV as long as I find it interesting and there's something in it, and then I can have a conversation. That's not something I can do. Of course, lots of big companies who have hundreds of applicants per one position, they will just filter out through AI and get all the top results because they want to deal with it. And there's we can go to a whole conversation about how recruiting is bad in those ways, but in general, it's helpful. I think it's helpful as long as it's not a decision maker in many cases. And but you can see how this will displace some of the lower HR jobs. Those people who actually are responsible for hiring and reviewing the initial snapshot of all the CVs and get some review. They will not be needed, those kind of junior HR positions. I assume that's a junior HR position. Yeah. But then it creates a little bit of a problems, like where the seniors are coming from when the juniors are not needed because they've been replaced with AI. Yeah. That might create actually the same issue across everywhere. And I've heard recently interesting comment that the software engineers are getting old, where the average age of senior and good software engineers is slowly moving up. Like we feel that there's lots of, see the job positions, there's so many applicants, but in general, it slowly is moving up. So it might create this weird thing that in a while, like now these days, from what I've heard, it's hard to find somebody who will work just in the shop because just people are not interested. This may create the same situation in the software engineering where we don't have this fresh junior blood coming into the system because it has been replaced with all the AI capabilities, and all that left is those senior people who've been in the industry for 20 years. They're probably well overpaid now these days because there's not many of them. It doesn't happen now, but I could see that this could be potentially happening like 10, 15 years from now. Well, we'll see how it pans out, but that's kind of sounds familiar that it could happen.
Yeah. A lot of people that look at AI, for them, the ultimate question is, like, if you give it enough computing power, will it become, self-aware, sentient? And it's hard to really put a definition on that. And my view is that we'll never really know, because even if it says it's alive, there's no real way of testing it. And I mean, it's already beaten the Turing test, so which is like so random that no one really even talks about that AI has beat the Turing test, which used to be this like incredible ultimate, benchmark, and now that's just that is completely gone at this point. But we'll never really know if it's alive or not. But I guess the better way to rephrase the question is consciousness like uniquely biological, or if you give enough computing power to GPUs, can it replicate that in the same way? I don't know if you've ever even thought about that, but having been at NVIDIA for 6 years or whatever, I'm sure it's something that came to mind sometimes.
So this is actually one of those things that comes to my mind recently, very recently. It's we go way beyond from the engineering, but we're touching on the topic. You ask whether enough computing power will create genuine awareness.
I guess just AGI. It depends on what definition you use for AGI, but if we just say it's aware, it's in the same way that we're having a conversation right now, it could do the same thing and feel, maybe feel is the wrong word, but think the same way.
Think, but not feel. I think that's the difference. We as human beings, there's so many things that are not understood about us. It's like how the fact that you have consciousness even exists in our brain. Lots of people explain it, just electrical things happening in your head, and there is no a way, at least so far, to actually genuinely explain what awareness and consciousness is. That leads to more spiritual work when you're talking about what is the soul, whether we can feel the energy between each other. And there's so many things that some people look at it and feel like it's just crazy, maniac, whatever this person believes. Sure. But I think there's a lot beyond of the real world we know, we never touch. And possibly, I have a hard time imagining that the machine could actually become a soul embodied organism in a way that can actually be genuinely conscious, have goals, real goals, have feelings actually attached to it, and not think about those things, because there is a difference having feelings and actually thinking about the feelings. And I think this is really where it happens, where at least the AI we are imagining now, and where we think it can go in the next, let's say, few decades, is it will think about all those things, what it means to have consciousness, but think about it where we actually feel and we actually have it. And then we are, then we go beyond. It's like, what's the real world? Where we're asking, like, maybe we are freaking living in the simulations, and there's no way we're going to ever prove it. It's like we don't know what's actually the reality is. And maybe we're part of AI system already. We just don't simply know it, and we are creating another one, which will create another one, and we go into weird concept of inceptions or some other things where you can go forever and actually get very depressed if you like, or you can be very positive of creating another world. So we just simply don't know where it's going to lead. And
Yeah.
I don't think we'll find it out in our lifetime. Like genuinely, how far the rabbit hole goes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In a way.
It goes deep, I imagine. I mean, I could talk about simulation theory for hours, but just from a purely mathematical concept, if the universe has been around for 14 billion years, if you believe in the Big Bang, right? And if we've been around for the tiniest fraction of the most recent time, all that time before, there could have been a much more intelligent life form that existed for a billion years, 10 billion years, and they've created AGI, and we're living in that, right?
Yeah, we
don't know, do we?
Yeah, this is something you can have conversation about for hours, just to try to figure out the different ways how it could be real and different, and how we are not in a zoo, in a situation, or a simulation, or matrix, and you can go. There's this concept has been explored in movies gazillion times. Plus, the biggest minds in the world were always asking the meaning of life and what's actually reality. And I don't think that's something we can answer quickly. But with the AI, I think give us a little bit of a glimpse what it means to us, and what is actually the thinking process. It maybe give us a nice distinguish between us as human beings, as the complex with all those things we know, and the AI part, which is mostly focused on learning, on thinking based on what the experience already has, which is the learning part. Yeah. So there is, and I can't, maybe I'm just too limited in my beliefs or openness that AI could, or that the machine could have the soul capabilities of the human being, this genuine consciousness of, and the connection that humans have between each other, because I don't think we really will have a genuine human type of connection like we have with a machine. I might be wrong.
Yeah, it will be very hard for us, because if you know it's AI and you're talking to it, I mean, there are people trying to build AI like friend type apps, and it's not quite there yet. I mean, if it gets better and better and better, then perhaps, but yeah, but we'll have to see. Yeah,
that's where it's we're going to the nuclear bomb kind of solution, right? It's like in some of the cases, it's amazing thing to do. Yeah. There are people who would get a lot of value from the artificial intelligence chatbots or human-like interactions. They will be good enough and actually bring those people, whether it's from depression or whatever they're dealing with. But I can see quickly how this will replace real relationships. And there's so many now about young people having problem build genuine relationships with their peers in their 15, 20 years, because they've been all disconnected from the real world through all the social media that are happening around them, because that's easier. It's like people have problem dating. They actually don't want to have sex because it's easier to have sex on the internet. It's maybe sounds silly, but it's like we are just about getting the glimpse of it. And those people who are now growing, this will come with the payment later. You know, there will be cost attached to it down the line, that those people will grow into people who may not wake up out of this, and they will end up with a lot of social challenges. That there's no more kids. That's another problem.
That's a real problem.
People are now worried that the Earth will be overpopulated. It's like, with what I see so far, I don't think Earth will actually get overpopulated. It's like the technology is replacing the human relationships, and that creates so many challenges. I think the best job in 10 years, let's say 20 years, is going to be therapists.
Yeah.
It's like, that sounds like a good job. And all the manual jobs, like build houses from scratch. It's like nobody will be able to do it anymore.
No, we are becoming too dependent on our devices to the point where if the internet suddenly went down, there would be some like lost knowledge, and there are theories about this of people that there's been extinction events, and then the people that have survived didn't know how to rebuild in the same way that I mean, these are rabbit holes, aren't they? But yeah, cool. Well, look, Andrew, that's been a masterclass really on how to become a CTO, how to become a leader, how to get into tech and succeed. Thoughts on the 4-day work week, and then AI and beyond really. I guess for people that haven't enjoyed this, if they want to learn a little bit more about you and maybe check out Omnevue, if I put a link below you, what's the best place? Would it be your LinkedIn or the website? Or?
So the best way to catch me is on LinkedIn. It's like just to have a conversation. I'm always happy and open to have conversations. In terms of reading, what I'm doing, Medium. So it's Andrzej Winnicki, medium.com. I believe that's the link. I think it's also on my LinkedIn profile. And I'm writing there quite a lot about hiring process, about some of the tech. I enjoy the front-end technologies. Like as an engineer, I consider myself front-end engineer. Although, like after so many years in it, you can do everything. But I don't believe in full stack, which is apparently controversial these days to say it. But I consider myself front-end engineer, and I actually wrote quite a bit about this and hiring and some of the things around. I actually started writing a little bit outside of it. Is I wrote one post which I really enjoyed. It was about finding meaning in life. And I've got a few ideas I want to write about in this area. So kind of around the topics we talk about, the reality bits and those things, which is very interesting. But yeah, Medium, LinkedIn. It's probably the best way to reach out. And
cool. I'll link the LinkedIn and then people can find the Medium from there. But cool. Well, thanks for coming on. Pleasure.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode. I really, really appreciate it. I hope it brought you some value. And if you haven't already, please remember to click subscribe or follow wherever you're watching this podcast now.